G'day friends, welcome to today's YouTube video. My name is James, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Today I will be flipping this gorgeous journal. I have been working on this for a long time and I'm gonna call it done. I think it's finished, every page has something on it and it's mostly full. Of course there are teeny tiny nooks and crannies and there's some bigger nooks and crannies that could be filled, but I think the time to let this journal go has arrived. But who knows, maybe one day in the future I'll pull it back out and work in it again. It has been one of my favorites. I think it was so unexpected. You'll kind of see as we go through just kind of what it evolved into, but this is my Mermay 2024 journal. Originally, it was actually, I wonder if I have one just here. I do. It was originally one of these, which is a Daisy Ween prompt book. This one is a hardcover version, and you can see it started out, Elijah was in here. This started out as an empty prompt book. So you'll see these little prompts down the bottom, and there's a little intro story. It was basically a Halloween version of the Daisy character's little story. And I made up all these really nonsensical kind of Dr. Seuss-esque prompts that would inspire an illustration of a costume that she was going to wear. So that's why they kind of read really stupid. All of that to say, I had a bunch of these that I bought when I was testing the quality of the print and the paper and the cover and the binding and etc, etc. I have some soft cover ones as well that I actually use. I mean, I've put them all to use. I think this one might be the last one that I have left, or maybe there's a couple of these as well. But this is my virtual voyage journal that I've been working on. I really like to be able to put all of those to use. And so I decided last year, because I wanted to take a bit more of a laid back approach to Mermay, that I would just work in this and kind of see what happened. And I went painting the cover to kind of give it a good head start. And over the entire Mermay challenge, I would add little bits and pieces to this cover. So this really did evolve over time. And then one day I got a plastic cover and had to use a heat tool, and it's kind of busted a little bit, but I wanted to cover it to keep it protected. This is one of the only journals I've got a plastic cover on. But yeah, it fits really beautifully and I love it. I love the whole feel of this. It's so tactile, it's so big, it's so chunky, but it's still held together really well. So just kind of glad for how all of this turned out. Let's get into the entire thing and we'll just kind of chat through. I'll pick out some things of note. It's very junk journal-esque as well. Obviously, all the mermaids are in here. I did a counter to make sure that I was doing all of the ones for the challenge, but then there was another counter I was doing that were just all the extraneous mermaids, like these two here, and I don't think I counted any stickers or anything I put in, but any extra ones that I drew, I was counting them, and then I lost count, so that's where that went. But there's so many. There's millions of mermaids in here. There's also a lot of Snapchat filter photos. They just make me laugh. Anything that is a good little memory, makes me laugh, makes me smile, makes me think, it belongs in a journal for me. So here's one of those extra mermaids that you'll see throughout. These ones here, this became a tutorial. I don't know what I called it, but they're kind of in columns, these mermaids. I believe this was what I did first that became that tutorial. I believe. Can't be sure on that. This page really randomly, if I had, say I had like a sticker and I had trimmed off a little bit of something, not even just a sticker, but like photos that I was trimming down, all of the extra strips of adhesive I would just put on this page. And this was around Virtual Voyage 9 last year as well, where I had lots of little collections of things going on, like little stamps from mail that I got. That's an obvious one, but there was ones like the printer registration stuff that's on packaging. I would collect that, and then I also was collecting my name from different bits of mail. So this was one of my little strip collections. I know it sounds stupid, but honestly it was so funny. Every time I had like a little extra bit of thing, I thought, oh great, I'll flip to the front page and I'd stick it down. Just felt like it had a reason all of a sudden. Another mermaid in here. I decided to put a lot of paint all over these pages. You can see here, I was getting very painterly throughout this Mermay. And I think because the paper is, it's a kind of good quality copy paper at best, like you'd put through a printer for some documents. It doesn't hold up great to a lot of wet media. So I figured that if I use a lot of paint, like acrylic paint first, then I could kind of layer on top of that as a bit of a mixed media base. So there's a lot of pages that just have paint on them, and I was just kind of grabbing paint whenever. It just felt like this, I had nothing to lose in this, so I was really just throwing everything at it. My photos, of course, my cash check, what are they called? The little perforated strips. I do love her. I love this one too. It felt so good to be in such a large size as well. This is, I believe, is like a US letter size, maybe just a little bit bigger. 8.5 by 11. Yeah, 8.5 by almost 11-ish. Let's just call it US letter size for good measure. Some more of these mermaids. You can see the paint that I've just thrown in the background. They were all kinds of acrylic paints. I don't think any of them were like particularly expensive or good quality, but I think there's something to be said for working this way where you're kind of uninhibited, and even though you're making very intuitive, slightly irrational decisions sometimes by just throwing paint everywhere or just, you know, throwing a bunch of stuff down, I think the creativity that it helps challenge is what to do in the next step. So you are starting to think about, okay, what would layer over the top of this? Or then you get experimental. Does this layer over the top of this? Is this going to play well? And that's not something that I want to sit down and think about before I start. I'm not one to sit down and grab all my supplies and think, all right, what am I going to test today? I'm actually just more likely to kind of have at it and then learn along the way, kind of stumble through the process, not really thinking, and then hopefully noting it down if I remember. A lot of the time I don't, and it is what it is, but I also like that kind of problem-solving aspect when you're using supplies that might not work well together or paper that doesn't take media very well. It does start to make you create in a bit of a different way. You become a little bit more resourceful, a little bit more problem-solving, or you become a little bit more reckless. Like you abandon all ideas about what you think you can do and you just kind of have at it. So that's a really good way to get out of your head too. These are some photos that made me laugh. I keep all of my little bits and pieces, my little notes. I've got notes everywhere. I always have just a stack of Post-its by my desk. So every time I'm writing little reminders to myself, I don't like to chuck those away. I just like to keep them. They're a memory in and of themselves. I thought this was funny too. I had these old stickers and I just put them on. It worked, and I would never have used those stickers for anything else. She's really nice and big. You can see I scraped through the paint in there. It didn't really have that impasto quality, but I layered the paint thick enough so you can do that. Excuse me, my nose is running a little bit. I do have allergies. I said I was going to wait till I didn't have allergies to do this flip, but I don't know why I thought that would happen, because that's going to be months away. I'm like right in the thick of allergy season. These are painted over this white. It wasn't gesso. I think it was just a really thin layer of white paint here anyway. I really love this. Even the way that some of the paint would bleed through the paper, or, you know, I would just kind of use that as a part of my image. And I didn't feel the need to fully cover up everything, you know, just to kind of mat it out a little bit. If you see coming up, I always kind of forget to say this, but we might as well talk about it. It's just a really good little marker, paint marker, this Uni Posca brush in the white. It's not super duper opaque on the first layer, which is actually a pretty good thing for me. There's a lot of what I do in journaling where the art kind of overlaps something underneath, but it can be hard. Like if you're gonna, you know, you were gonna draw a face over all of this, it would be really hard to kind of pull that face out and start to read it. However, if I did just the outline of where I want to do the face and then took my white marker and then just kind of white out over the surface of that, suddenly it gives me a base to work with. It's kind of transparent. You can still see through, so you can still see through that layer here. I didn't use this for this, by the way, but it's the same kind of an effect. But now my eyes are not drawn to this block of text that bleeds into her tail. I'm just looking at her, and then I realize it's kind of underneath. And I don't mind it as a layer. I love the kind of layering aspect of this journal. So that's just something that I do from time to time. I wonder, I've got my Mermay journal here, so I will spoil something and kind of show it to you. I do it a lot as well when I'm, here's a really good example actually. When I'm using stickers from my collage club, my ephemera, if I want to redraw a face or something, I quickly paint over, you know, a sheer layer with the white, and that gives me a nice matte base to work on top of. And so I can kind of rework it. I know exactly which one I want to flip to, but I don't know where it is in the book. Oh, here it is. So I had stamped 2 of these stamps over this old bit of scratch pad, and you can see I'd done some swatching down here with the pencils. I'd been scribbling over everything with pen. So originally these 2 stamps were just ghost impressions that I wanted to do so that I could you know, do it on the page with a really light impression. But then I decided to make, like, you know, glue it in here and make these mermaids. However, you could just see all the scribbles all through them. And even though I felt like you could still kind of see it well, I took this pen and just lightly went over everything to shear it down. And so if you look, you can still see the texture of those layers underneath, but it's sheared out. And so you're not focusing on all of that background. They have kind of popped forward on top of it in kind of a transparent layer. So super random thing, but I always forget to tell you that that's one of the tricks that I use to make things more readable when you're layering a lot. And it might pop up back through here as well, but anyway, this was the first mermaid I did. She's actually probably one of my least favorites of the whole thing. Ironically, I was working with so much abandon, but then when I started, I kind of had too much, you know, anticipation and tried to do too much too quickly. So, you know, she's not my favorite, but she's okay. I had a good time doing it. I just didn't, you know, she wasn't my favorite. Got all my little junk here too. Love my photos. I would say that if you're, you know, an art journaler and you don't love to do words too much, it would say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So every time you get a picture in there, you got 1,000 words. This is what I taught on YouTube based on that thing. A little bit of collage club drawn in here. So this one I would count as an extra mermaid because I did draw the rest of her there. I must have been going through a Panda Express phase because there's a lot of little fortunes in here. Here's the second mermaid piece. I do really like her. This is kind of chronological. I think every next page has, like every right-hand side page is the mermaid piece. Yeah. So wherever the prompt is down here, that's the mermaid piece for 2024. There's a video of every single one of these. I'm assuming if you're watching this flip, you might have seen some of those. It was the worst performing series on my entire YouTube channel. It did tank my YouTube channel algorithm, so that is why I'm not doing it daily again, and I don't know if I'll ever do another daily challenge. You know, I'm not one to care too much about the algorithm, but when it kind of punishes you for doing something and like takes away a lot of your viewers, it's, I don't know, that one hurt a little bit. So I'm gonna pack a bunch of them into one video. Do you know what I mean? Like I might do 7 in one video and make it nice and substantial. But we're not here to talk about analytics. Talk about the mermaids. These are Cupid doll ones. My mom actually sent me, oh, there they are. They're the Cupid dolls there. She sent me this photo because she got me one from the Royal Easter Show. And then I put it in, use some paint markers to go over the top and just make those. These ones are some of my favorite. They're so simple. They're so cute. I rarely draw something really simple, I feel like. Every time I look back through my work, even if something has, you know, the essence of simple, I always start to add like tiny details, or then I start hatching over everything. Like I just can't help myself. I'm so much more is more is more. So every time I see something that's quite plain and simple, it feels very new and fresh for me. She was a sticker there, all the way down to here, I guess. Yeah, and then I just added on her tail. I think I must have worked on top of I think I worked this, redid some of that. The Kewpie Mayo. Sausage Sizzle Meow. Obviously you can see this has a lot of personal life stuff in here as well. This is kind of my ideal art journal setup. I love a hardcover. A book that I don't feel too precious about. It's got my ephemera from my life. It's got my photos in here. It's got writing in here. It's got art in here. This is really kind of the ultimate art journal setup for me. But also, having said that, there'll be some stuff that I won't flip open or flip to just because it's not something I want on the internet. Well, not in this video anyway, so if I don't go through absolutely everything, sometimes there's a reason for it. Other times I've just moved beyond it because it's not that interesting. Here are receipts that luckily I wrote about that for some reason the tape completely disappeared, the whole thing. You know, I know a lot of printers are thermal printers, so I would think that it would be the heat that kind of takes it away. I didn't realize this tape would take it away, and it wasn't even all different types of tape. It was this specific Scotch Magic tape, I think. So I don't know why, but now I just have blank receipts in here. This is a Starbucks straw wrapper that I made into a Starbucks mermaid. Love these Belvitas. The Starbucks bag. She is a mermaid, the siren. So I just wanted to give her my art journal girl treatment. I really, really love this one too. I've always had this looping coral thing going on with the mermaids in my art journaling, and I feel like that's something that I do kind of mindlessly when it comes to mermaid drawings. This one was also one of my favorites, and purely for the fact that it just kind of worked out. This page had ripped because I used, you can see watercolor through here. And I think once it started to rip, I just thought, you know, go with it, and I just ripped the rest of it off. And then she kind of appeared in the edge. She kind of took that form. And for some reason, she reminds me of Kylie Minogue. But I really, really love this bit. You can see, though, it just, I mean, even though the watercolor laid down, it just doesn't have the same watercolor effect. You can definitely tell it has that copy paper feel. You wouldn't even say it's blotchy. It's just, yeah, it just doesn't look great. But it doesn't matter. It's just one of those things that if you're starting art journaling for the first time, I think this is the thing too. When I was watching a lot of people art journal, I saw them using beautiful supplies on beautiful paper, and you know, the effect and the results that they could have doing simple things were very, very impressive and looked really nice. And then I feel like the things I was using were not as high quality, and I couldn't get the same results. I couldn't get the same effects. Even if the technique was the same, I would, you know, study how are they using that watercolor? Like, am I doing the right consistency? Am I laying it down the right way? But I was just laying it on cardstock. Like, it wasn't the same thing as a cold pressed watercolor paper, you know, that's 100% cotton. So I feel like, you know, you got to take into account that these results do vary, and it has a lot to do with your paper. It has a lot to do with your art supplies. I'd say it mostly has a lot to do with your paper, to be honest. I can get away with using lower quality art supplies on better paper than I can get away using good quality art supplies on bad paper. Not bad, but like cheap paper. So keep that in mind. I mean, I think it's better, you feel more comfortable doing stuff like this and being okay with these results once you know you've done the other thing and you can achieve the other results. Because when this feels like all you can get to, you feel like you actually don't know how to do it. But if you've had the play with the watercolors, you know what they do, you've got the paper for that, you've got the other journals for that, this feels more okay because you kind of know it's just whatever. I don't really know if that'll make a lot of sense, but I guess to say, if I did all of this before I'd ever played with watercolor properly, I would look at this and think, well, that's really bad, because look at how much it shows that I don't know how to use the watercolor. The reality is I do know how to use the watercolor. I know how to get good results. This is just not that for me, but I feel fine with that. I wouldn't have felt fine with that if I feel like this was all I had to show for my watercolor. So if you're getting a journal for the first time and for some reason, you know, you've got one of these or you've got a, you know, cheaper quality journal and you want to have this same play, just keep in mind that, you know, context is everything when you're looking at someone's finished results and the way that they feel about them too. I can feel happy about a lot of things that a lot of people wouldn't feel happy about because the reason I'm doing it or the way I was doing it is different. The context is different. For me, this was all about loosening up, having fun, doing it as it came and not caring too much, just enjoying the process of it. So that means the results can look super varied and don't always have to look very good. They don't have to display a lot of skill or, you know, control or quality. They actually just have to exist, and I have to have had a good time doing it, and that's kind of the benchmark for my success in this challenge anyway. Here's a lot of stickers for my apples and my bananas. I usually like to eat 1 to 2 apples a day and 1 banana per day, especially when I'm dancing. Before I dance, I like to eat a banana, and then during a break, I like to eat an apple. For some reason in my head, the banana calms my stomach and the apple re-energizes me. There's probably no science to that, but that's just what I'm going with. So anyway. Also, I made a lot of the apple ones, this jellyfish. And I think a lot of the banana ones became little mermaids as well. I put all stickers on her head. Originally, she was just the graphite drawing, and then I put all stickers here. There is something that I do in my abandoned inserts now that I think kind of stemmed from this, and it was, see how this kind of interacts with this piece here? You know, I would consider this like a nice drawing, something that I spent time on. I got the blending stumps out, you know, I really did some quality work in this little drawing here. But now I don't mind, you know, sticking stickers on top of it and then putting this little piece of ephemera and drawing into it. Obviously, I scanned it first for, you know, use after the fact, but I just like how that interacts in my journal. It's, you know how when people kind of say when they mix their vintage with high fashion, like high-low, I feel like it's the same idea in journaling. You've got this high-low, this, you know, good piece of little drawing here next to a shopping list. High-low. That's a good way to think about that. I've been trying to figure out how I was going to describe that, and I feel like I finally came up with the analogy. It's high-low. This is a mermaid, and this was from, you know those things you stick in the shower and they need something to stick onto, like a phone holder? This was the base plate for that, but I felt like it looked like a magnifying bubble, so I just used it for this. Excuse me, my nose. Obviously got my little junk in here, my photos, my Snapchat filters, my mermaids. I think she was stamped out. She's one of my Goral stamps. The one with the body, you can see the fashion body underneath. She turned into a mermaid real easy. Love her. One of my favorites. I think I was, yeah, here, inspired by a Bun. Roxanne had done this like mermaid, I think it was mermaid skeleton or something, but I very much took inspiration from that, hollowed her out, gave her a bit of like a, you know, chopped up sushi tail. I love this spiral fluke. Her hands turned out so nice for me. I rarely draw hands that nice. Little fins. I just love how it's all separated. It looks like a ball jointed doll or like a marionette. And her hair is kind of twisting up into this dead fish ponytail. These are just old photos. I was like really on a kick to go back to Japan last year. Still kind of am. I think I was really heavy into it, the idea last year. I still want to, but there was a lot of this in here. My brain can be fixated on a lot of things sometimes. That's why journaling helps. Kind of gives it a space to live. So it's not always in my head. Sometimes I can just leave it here and go about my day and come back to it. Here's my nieces and nephews. It's my sister and her children. And this is my brother's children. He has 3 boys. We got a new one. Lincoln. Just get the coconut shrimp. I always tell myself that. It's like a superstition I have because when I used to go off the cruise ship in St. Martin, I would just go and get coconut shrimp and just have a day. But the one time I decided, you know what, I'm going to go and do the thing that everybody else bailed on and let's just get on the 4-wheeler and we'll go to the other side of that's when I got hit by the van. So in my head, I have to get the coconut shrimp whenever I see it. Because I get worried I'm going to get hit by a car if I don't. It's such a weird superstition, but you know, my brain is not, it's not quite there all the time. Didn't love her. I don't know why, she's one of my fave. It was kind of Mary Blair-esque with this body, but I think the proportions were off. These ones were fun too, the mermaids and the bubbles. I just used a circle stencil for those. Look at all this Panda Express. What was I obsessed with Panda Express? Here is more photos. I did like her, she was pretty. This watercolor had a bit of a different effect. I want to say it's because there was paint on the page. Because this does feel like, maybe there wasn't. I'm not quite sure why this, I really do feel like I layered something down here. Because that effect looks different. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch the video. I won't, but I used this image as inspiration for her pose there. Here is more of my little banana stickers everywhere. This one was super weird, but I do like it. I felt very Yoshitomo Nara when I was figuring this one out. These were a bit of crayon sketching. Another one of these base plate things for the shower. I don't know why I just didn't use it, but this one was inspired by Bao Pham. You can see she kind of has that same aesthetic. Really inspired like a good bit of detail work that I don't think I would have normally done. I loved how her hair came out, this squid that kind of, I'm not sure if it's a hat or if it's her hair, but I even used these Japanese wave motifs through here as well. I like that this became the top. This, what would you call that? I don't know what that flower is. I did one that was inspired by a little selfie that I'd taken. And I really love this. I know it's not a mermaid, but I really like how this kind of angular portrait turned out. I'd love to try this again. My Wednesday Addams. That was just a piece of ephemera, and I just continued the braids. There's those fish again. They're the fish kind of eating the braids, like little piranhas, and then her tail as well. I also really got into like tiny tails. I've never been like that. I want to call this the fluke, but I really don't know if it is. I've always just wanted like the most massive, beautiful, wavy, you know, just the most gorgeous looking tails, but for some reason I really got into these really tiny thin ones. And a lot of them, you know, don't even have the tail. Like she's got it there, but this, you can't even see the rest. And I believe these were stamped. These were stamped. This is Copic marker. That's why it's got that beautiful flat effect. Sometimes when I'm testing a pen or I just need to like I need to clean this pen, I'll just scribble on my page as well. I don't mind that. I know a lot of people like do like a swatch as they go, and they have this beautiful, you know, curated little swatch by the end of it. Look at all this eraser. But I kind of take that as my little swatch history. The other thing I really like that's super random is that you can see when I've just painted over the edge of the page and it's hit the hardcover. I just like that. I feel like there's these little hallmarks of a journal that was used kind of recklessly that makes it feel very precious and very tactile. Like it's very integrated into a creative system that is kind of just flowing and going, and you know, random swatches here and there, paint overflowing on the page here and there. Even this, to an extent, like just being caught in here, just kind of shows like how I would just pick the book up, do whatever I want, and then throw it away. This coral, love the coral. Is that gold? There's something metallic about that. It's really pretty. It's either gold. I think it's a gold. So because it was Copic marker, it bled through. So I decided to take some tracing paper, glue it over the top, and then rework these from the back. And you can see that the motif that came through, now it almost looks like a tattoo on them because it has this transparency, and their faces just look completely different. Their hair is different. This is really fun to kind of rework on the back. She was one of my favorites as well. Just like tangential lines. So these lines have to connect through to one another. Not every single one, but you can see that this is like such a crazy looking shape. But here's the example here. If you take the line that starts right here, it goes through to the face, around the top of the crown, down past the head. It goes straight through, but see how it connects to this hip line and comes straight out the other side? I just like the flow of all of that. And sometimes my brain just really enjoys the geometry of all these shapes. And I just feel like I'm putting together a fun puzzle. So yeah, she was one of my favorites. Plus I like that her tail was made up of all these fish that were kind of, what do you call it, like nesting doll style? Like they got smaller and smaller, but they're all kind of eating on each other. Some Collage Club ephemera. When I get my Etsy shipping out, I have a Dymo label printer, the thermal label printer. Sometimes I just open my Photos app and I just print photos onto the thermal paper. It's just a different effect, different quality. I don't mind. It's really easy, really quick, simple. She was very painterly. I like her colors. She felt very 70s Barbie colored to me. Some Tim Burton. Love a bit of Tim Burton. She was stamped out. I would never do a tail like this. But Tim Burton's work just kind of inspires a different, I don't know, like a different creative flow in me. So I love to play with Tim Burton inspiration. She has the look of Susan Sarandon in Enchanted. You know what? I forget what her name is, but she's like the evil stepmother. Is she even the stepmother? She's just the evil queen. I have no idea. But I do like it. I think this tail, this took forever. I just did a mermaid like this this year where the tail pattern just took so much longer than I thought. But I like to switch it up. I don't always want to do scales. I do like scales, but sometimes, I'm just curious to see what something else would look like. I did a mermaid with the Harlequin diamonds, and I thought that was really pretty. That was inspired by Mary Blair and Margaret Keane. These two, this is a print that I did on the label printer of those two. I tried to redo the Kewpie style, like very simple. I love how these turned out. They were a nightmare to put in Collage Club though. You would not believe how difficult a time you have sometimes scanning and getting it to work. And especially because like if the tones are really light and this paper kind of scans a little blue. It's a very stark white. So ironically, when you actually go to put this onto another white page on a document on a computer, it starts to look like there's a blue background. So I wanted to remove that blue in the background, but I actually had to go around every single line and remove it manually so that it looks like it was sat on white paper, not a blue, like a light blue cutout on a white paper. That will only make sense to you if you've ever kind of dealt with that color grading issue before, but yeah, it was a nightmare. All my preserved photos. I'm coming up to finishing that this year as well. Some ephemera, I redid her eyes. These are these mermaids in a bubble that I used that template for. I just really love this idea. Brushstroke mermaid, classic. These ones were, I loved this color palette. I was picking up random pencils. That's when I tipped out all of the pencils I had in my pencil case at my desk, and I had to use every single one of them. I put it in black and white because I thought, there's something so off about the tonal value of this, and sometimes I do get a little bit analytical from the art perspective, like are the tones the right tones? Do they build the right grayscale? Like is the contrast, working? And it wasn't, and this was kind of a lesson to me in how it still doesn't matter, which obviously is something I know, but like art theory is great. It teaches you a lot, and there's a lot to use art theory for, but at the end of the day, my enjoyment comes from creating visuals that I just like to see, that my eyes like to see. So if the tonal value is all the way wrong, if the skew is completely off, if the proportions are off, but my eyes like to see it, there's not much more to care about beyond that, right? And the theory could be all the way off. The skew could be off, the perspective could be off, the color values could be off, but beyond your eyes enjoying to look at it, what does it matter? So I like to remind myself that so that I can remind everybody else that too, especially in art journaling. We don't tend to get caught in the weeds of art theory a lot. We use a lot of it. We have our hands in the practical application of art theory a lot, but we don't necessarily need to subscribe to it and be beholden to it. So just keep working towards what your eyes enjoy and it will be great. It's working on some poses. That one was inspired by Greg Barnes. I love his illustrations. Pat McGrath, we use this for our Christmas card. That porcelain skin. I did Margiela mermaids here, some fashion mermaids. I couldn't decide whether I wanted just them to be in mermaid-shaped clothes or actually have mermaid tails. And then I thought, well, they should be mermaids, so I gave them tails. There's a lot more stuff. Oh, this is my cat when I was little. We always had blue Seal Point Siamese. This is Caesar. Bianca. This was really fun too. I used my connector pens. I think more than anything, I wanted to just color in like I did when I was in high school. Connector pens are water-based. They're interesting. They literally do what they say. They connect to each other. They're by Faber-Castell. These are huge for Australian school kids, and I loved them, but I had kind of early on seen that there was this ability to use markers and get a streak-free effect. Did not know that that was an alcohol marker. I just thought, these were pros at using connector pens. And so I would try and line up my lines super close together and, right next to one another in these perfect parallel lines, so that even if I couldn't get a smooth effect, it would be neat and clean looking rather than streaky, and you could see all the directional lines of all of the drawing. I was very pedantic as a kid. I also used to use the connector pens, like if I needed to draw something blue, I'd outline the whole thing in blue, and then I'd use a blue pencil and I would shade inside of it. I loved that effect. I thought it was the most effective way to color in. I should do that again. I haven't done that in years, but yeah, so I believe that's why I got so kind of carried away with all of this. And then I made Bianca one as well. I kind of extended her white hair into here, her little bikini. Some of my Disney stuff. This is a collage I did for Instagram. This was the mermaid for that day, inspired by this one that I did. I just love that pose. I even used her as inspiration. Like, she has the same kind of little eyelashes, her tiny little pigtails. I put her tiny little pigtails here. She's got these spikes down her back. I gave her a bit of a softer effect. She's kind of like the soft, a little bit more glamour-puss version of this freak. These. I wanted to make one of these for Christmas, but I couldn't find any wooden, and I don't know how to turn wood like this or carve it, but I couldn't find any bases like this. So I even went to Home Depot. I tried looking at all the wooden finials. I looked at bedposts. I looked at literally everything. I just thought, well, as long as I can get something with enough of this taper and this, geometry, it would work. But there was always something really off about it. I have faith that one day I will run into a bunch of, wooden turned blanks that I could use. But for now, these just exist here like this. Maybe I shouldn't use wood. Maybe I should just use paper clay or something, but I think I want them in wood. Or just find someone who can do them. Surely someone out there knows how to do it. And this was a mermaid that I really loved. I loved her pose as well. This was a set of toys. I actually have a couple of those up on my shelf over there. I do not know where the rest went. In fact, the only reason I found those ones up there was because I was at home and one of the children were having a bath, and when I went into the bathroom afterwards, they had all their toys out, and I found a bunch of my mermaid toys in the bathtub toys. So don't know how they got in there, because I certainly did not donate them to the bathtub toy section. My mom, I think, probably just took them from my room at home, because between contracts I would leave a bunch of my stuff at home, and it was fair game at that point, I guess. But yeah, so I have a couple of these I brought back with me. I've always loved how glamorous they look. They're Ariel and her sisters. I got them from the Disney store too. They're official Disney merch. They're just super stylized mermaids. Sorry, having a little sip of water. This is one of our favorite little pizza places to go to. This is me with my mermaid jewel hair Teresa Barbie when I was a little boy. Love Pats. Some lolly wrappers. My Zendaya Met Gala Mermay. Oh, the Met Gala is coming up, actually. Can't wait to see what everyone's wearing. More Fjodos, some junk. I like her colors. She was pretty. Very mixed media, this little section here. You can see it really puckered all the paper around it. I guess that annoys me a touch when, if the media isn't spread all across the paper, if it's just here, but you can see all the puckering around it. And it doesn't annoy me for aesthetics, it's practical. My annoyance, it's hard to stick things on top of it when it doesn't lay flat. So you can see that's probably why I avoided it. You don't want to write over it either, like it just gets annoying. So, covered it up back here anyway. If something's big enough, you know, you can kind of cover it, but here was some more Copic marker, I believe. I love this light effect of outlining in, you know, a pink or even a neon color here is quite pretty. All my notes. This is, oh, I lost the little ball bearing to my nipple piercing. If you don't know, I have 2 nipple piercings. Strange way to find out in a journal flip, but yeah, I lost it. I eventually found it, but I had to change the piercings, and I didn't have the same ring size. The ring was bigger, and it just hurt a lot to change, and it was a whole drama. And then as soon as I had changed everything, I found it. It was right underneath the desk. So anyway, that's my little story. I put it in, I disinfected, I cleaned it, and then I put it in here just to keep it with my story. And I do love to be able to put physical objects in my journals as well. This is why something of a substantial size works for me a lot better than small things. But I mean, I have been making do with these journal inserts. You just obviously can't put as much. Would I put this in a journal insert? Probably, if it didn't have a lot of pages. And some of my journal inserts don't, so that's fine. But yeah, I do like to put a bunch of real life things in here. I have a necklace that broke, but I still kind of wear it. When I eventually give up on it, I'll put it in a journal. Yeah, I like that. It's a keepsake for everything, honestly. If I can put it in a journal, it will go in a journal. This was a page originally when I had finished. I thought, oh wow, I've just really done the most with that. It's a little wild, and now I think it's one of my favorites. This really grew on me over time. I don't know if it's the collection of colors or the textures or just the layout. Like the composition, I feel like works really well. There is a bit of a process to some of these things where, like, you know, as you're doing them, you think you're just making 1,000 different mistakes, but then it all kind of comes together at the end. I can't say I even know how to explain that process correctly, you know, and to lead you to the same success, but it's a lot of production line style, right? Like you can see I obviously drew out the mermaids first, but they all have the same tail, even though they're different colors, the same idea of this pencil scribble tail, and then they're all outlined with this blue ink. That blue ink doesn't really show up anywhere else inside the image. It's clearly just an outline for the whole thing. So I think there's those little elements that I believe kind of tied it all together in the end in a way that made it look purposeful. But throughout the whole process, I was like, oh, I'm just throwing noodles at a wall here. So, love that. I also think I really loved the splatter effect with the different colors, which I thought I ruined using this paint marker for the background. But even the way that they've all blended out, it just looks like funfetti. Like angel food cake. Funfetti. Savannah. Here is some art snacks. My little notes for Virtual Voyage. Love her. Love to be able to kind of use the entire page and make this idea that it extends way beyond the page. I think that's really nice as well. It gives you a good chance to pull forth a lot of the detail that you do want to work on. Trying to fit a full mermaid on every page would make everything quite small. You know, proportionally, I like a longer tail. So if every page needed to fit, you know, this much of a tail on here, you're getting a small body-ish about this big. So the head becomes about this big. There's just not much you can work on. So that's why I like to bring a lot forward and then just have the rest exist off the page. So I can work on what I want to work on, which is typically always the face, the hair, that top torso part of the body into the hips. Everything else is, you know, can be off the page. Here, I think I tried to recreate the success of the page a few pages ago. to a lesser extent. I did a bad face on this one, so then I went over it with some paint marker and redid the face. I like that effect. I like that kind of reworking. It feels nice to just go over something and do it again. Makes you remind yourself that, you know, you're not always stuck with what you're doing. You can just start again. Not even just in art. Those are good just lessons in life sometimes that you just need to remember. This, I did that drawing earlier on that page with all the pencil. There she is. And I wanted to do this like for real, so I drew her again. I think this one has a lot more charm than this one. Obviously I changed some things about her designs, but I just think this one, in the sketchy quality of it, is a lot more appealing to me than this one. Once I cleaned it up, I felt like the pose was fun, but it just didn't have as much charm as the first one. Here is some more junk. I kept going with that arms crossed over the shoulder pose. I really like that. Actually, when we do photo shoots, I get a lot of people to pose like this with really bad posture and to put their arm over their shoulder and tuck their chin underneath. I just love that effect. I think it's so soft and it's very appealing. Like you kind of, I feel like when I look at those photos of people, most people that will take a photo like this, it's the photo that makes me want to look at them because they're kind of hiding from the camera. There's that pulling away that makes you draw in a little bit more. So I feel like we always do this. And some more junk. She's another one on, just say that every time I turn the page. More junk. Yeah, shock horror. It's all my junk. This is another one that I did on tracing paper. There was something underneath here. But I just wanted to try the effect of layering my mixed media on the tracing paper. It did warp a lot. So it has this kind of odd texture to it. It looks waxy and like crackled, which is an effect. I didn't love it, the effect for this, but it was the purpose I was kind of using this for, was to see what that paper would do when I added a lot to it. Some more Disney stuff, a little bit of a streamer from the birthday cavalcade. Some headshots I did. Disney tickets. Miss Piggy, my absolute fave. Better Together. I've been in rehearsals for this, so we'll be starting that soon. Oh, Olivia Newton-John. Some more Better Together stuff. I think that was it. That might have been the last mermaid. I think she was the last one. Yeah. It worked because in the Daisy Ween challenge, there were 31 prompt days. And from Mermay, there were 31 prompt days for mermaid. Well, not prompt days, but there were 31 mermaids. So each day that had a prompt on it, there should have been a mermaid on that page. And then the last prompt, it was done. So this is all just random extra journaling stuff. I did this for my friend Emmy's birthday card. Loved her. This double page mermaid, very large. Loved her little, what is that called? Skeleton? Spiderweb. Spiderweb bra. Some dancing. Pride. I forget that I used this all through the summer as well. Even into Virtual Voyage 9. These are the photo shoots from that. Rat Summer. It's so funny. Oh, this was closing Better Together. And now we're reopening it, which I'm really excited about. It's been really fun. We did like a big party afterwards. So that's what all this is about. The Grinch. This was my drawing for Preserved last year. I was going to do like a little cast drawing that I used my retro kawaii stamp for, but obviously could not be bothered finishing that. It's kind of sad I got all the way through that much, but there was still so much work to do after that. This was just the first sketch. It was going to have to be digitized, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I actually don't have time for this. It's kind of sad. I have, you know, sometimes I think I've curated this talent that I could definitely use, you know, to do all these really, really fun things, but I do not have the time to be able to do half the things that I want to do. So what good is having all the skills to be able to do it if you don't have the time to do it? That's why I always said if I was a billionaire, like I would still do all the things I'm doing. I would just not worry about doing any of the business side of anything. You know, it would all be purely for fun and for the stupid ideas I have. Here's a lot of photos. Like I would still do the videos, but someone else would edit them. Like someone else would come, set it all up. I would sit down, do my video, and then walk away, and then you would just have it whenever, like daily or something. That'd be too much. Would it be too much? I'm not sure. Look at my beautiful cats. That's when I got my Leica. I always take photos of the cats when I get a new camera. I said like I get a new camera a lot, but you know those little mini toy cameras I was using? I would take photos of the cats with them too. They're just always around. My little models. This was a photo shoot we did at Steve's studio. This is just a lot of junk slotted back into here. And then the back page. I think I showed you this, did I not? Just more mermaids. Mermay 2024. This is the entire journal. I absolutely love it. It's one of my all-time favorites. And as much fun as I'm having in the abandoned inserts, I think this is kind of what kicked off the idea. Well, not even the idea, but I do feel like a lot of how much fun I had in this, working this way, was what made me want to continue that. I did kind of break off for a second because I was doing Virtual Voyage 9, so suddenly I was in that humongous jumbo journal for that. And then I went into Christmas, which I was using a deco journal for. So when all of that was all said and done, and I was kind of starting this new year looking for, you know, what I was going to do next, I just so happened upon those abandoned inserts, and I thought, yeah, let me give it a try. And now I'm really on that kick. But this kind of journal, I think, is essentially what I would love to just always have. It's big, it's substantial. I love the hardcover. I love that it's not precious. It has everything in it. It's got my photos, my drawings, my writing, my stickers, my ephemera, my junk, my tickets, just everything. There's so much life that I managed to capture in here, real life and imaginary, and I just love it. So thank you for being here through this flip. Thank you for indulging me in another journal flip. You know, I love to chat about my art journaling. I hope you could glean some insightful information from some of this. The journal itself, it would be the worst way to get it if you were, but because it would be kind of expensive for no reason. Well, I guess people bought it for this, but I don't think anyone really bought the hardcover. I didn't even do my Daisy Ween challenge in the hardcover. But I do have these on Amazon, and there's a hardcover version there too, or a softcover version. So if you are looking to just try it, if you want like a no fuss, you know, you really can't do too much with this paper. I mean, I guess you can. You saw everything I managed to do with it, but watercolor is not your friend in here unless you kind of lay something down first. You could gesso it, I guess, if you wanted to, but if for whatever reason you do want to get a hold of this journal, I'll put it in the description box below. And I'll try and link the plastic cover as well if I can go find that. But yeah, I feel like because I have one more of these, like I'll end up using this much the same way. Maybe not for, you know, because this was just going to be a mermaid journal. It turned into my regular journal, but maybe not for a challenge. Maybe one day I'll just use this as my journal. But for now, I'm moving on to Virtual Voyage 10, which has its own Strathmore journal, and I am also in my abandoned inserts. So you'll see those flipped around at some point soon. For now, that's Mermay 2024. I'll see you again really soon for Mermay 2025. Bye.